Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're taking a first look at a brand new Pokemon in the world of Pokemon Go, Toxtricity. Toxtricity has been released in raids in the in-person wild area event in Fukuoka, Japan. And these raids are remotable, so if you happen to know someone who's attending, you can do what I did and get a remote raid invite to get access to Toxtricity. Now, Toxel, it's under evolution, will get a global release, I believe, at the start of this upcoming week. Now, Toxtricity is an electric and poison type Pokemon with the moveset of Poison Jab, Power Up Punch, and Wild Charge. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and take a look at Toxtricity in action in the Open Ultra League. Hopping into the first match, we pick up a great lead, leading Virizion into the Feraligatr. Opponent is going to save switch into their own Virizion. I do want to send in Toxtricity, but ideally I was waiting for them to throw their energy. But they're choosing to overfarm quite massively to make sure that they always have residual. It looks like my Virizion does win the CMP tie. Sacred Sword is going to connect, getting my opponent quite low. And now I'm going to look to send in Toxtricity and go for a snipe with the Poison Jab, but unfortunately they do throw right away, so I'm not able to pick up the KO. But I'm able to catch the Sacred Sword. In comes Feraligatr, and now we'll get to see Toxtricity in action. Toxtricity is going to be shielding up as they go for the Hydro Cannon, and now I'm built up to the Wild Charge and bait with the Power Up Punch. Toxtricity is a very bait-dependent Pokemon. If your opponent ends up shielding a Power Up Punch, they're not going to have a great day. But if they end up calling it, then things get quite tricky. Here I'm going to look to overfarm massively, going for another Power Up Punch. This is boosted. I wonder if it's going to be enough to KO. It barely is not. In the back is Talonflame, and I'm not baiting. I'm going straight for the Wild Charge. Do they respect it? They do not. That's a clean one-shot. Down goes Feraligatr. Down goes Virizion as well. And Toxtricity sweeps an endgame to secure the win. We got a tough lead in the next match, leading into the Malamar. And unfortunately, you're going to notice throughout these battles, the game state since they updated to the 0.339 update has been very, very poor. So you're going to notice a lot of frame drops. I am playing on Android, and unfortunately, until a new update comes out, we're just stuck with gameplay looking like this, which is just extremely disheartening. But anyways, here, I am met with a Skuntank that completely walls off my energy. I opted for Trailblaze on the Ampharos because I was seeing so much Gastrodon. And considering that Toxtricity, if a ground type even looks at it, it's going to faint because it takes double super effective damage there. I thought it was going to be very wise to actually try and have a move that can potentially one-shot Gastrodon. Here I lead with a Leaf Blade that I can fire at the Malamar, so I'm just going to be spam tapping the Leaf Blade, and they make a really good play. They send in Venusaur, that's double resisted, that's going to do almost nothing. In comes Toxtricity. Opponent, they're one off the move, they bring in the Malamar, and these Psywaves are going to start shredding through Toxtricity. Toxtricity is not bulky at all, it's actually very frail. But the good news for me is that even though I'm taking a lot of Psywave damage here due to the lack of bulk, I can buff up my damage with Power Up Punches. Looks like that is actually a CMP tie, so I will commit the shield, and now I have to look to try and go for the farm down. I know Venusaur is one off of their Frenzy Plant, so what this game is going to come down to is when do they decide to throw. I'm going to make a prediction. They're going to overfarm here, so I overfarm, but they throw instantly. I could have made a catch just on one and a switch, but I thought in the moment that that was too obvious and they would have overfarmed, but they did not, so unfortunately we will lose the game. Virizion into Skuntank in the next match, the save switch into the Shadow Ampharos, and I'm going to be met with Virizion, and this is very, very bad. Now, I don't have Focus Blast on my Ampharos, but my opponent, of course, doesn't know that, so I'm going to farm up a massive amount of energy and bluff like I have the Focus Blast on the off chance they respect it, and they do! Oh my goodness, this actually works out amazingly now. I'm able to force a shield. I'm going to get some boosted Brutal Swings. They're still not going to do a lot of damage, but grabbing a shield in a matchup where my energy is completely walled is awesome, and that's the power of blind threes in Go Battle League, is your opponent doesn't know your moveset, so sometimes you can get away with a little bit of sleight of hand. My opponent, they can fire off all the Sacred Swords they want. I just want energy here. They're going to pivot out into Skuntank, and that's honestly a really nice play by my opponent, because this prevents my Virizion from getting just an insurmountable energy lead by farming down theirs. They're firing off energy. Typically, they run Trailblaze and Crunch. Neither one is going to knock out, so I will be able to survive that. I'm going to land the Sacred Sword, and then it's Toxtricity time. And then I'm going to go for an aggressive farm down to just get ahead on energy. So my opponent is going to make a move. In the moment, I forgot it's typing, and I let a crunch through. That does so much damage, which is really not great. I should have just shielded the crunch and kept myself healthy, and then I would have been in a better spot. We'll have to see what they have in the back. They bring in Virizion. Unfortunately, game state, I don't get the fast move through there. My opponent is going to fire off another move. I am going to be double shielding now, and we'll have to see what is that final Pokemon. It's going to be Drifblim. I see one win con. I have to have a power-up punch shielded or land a wild charge. I bait, I get the shield, I tank the Astonish on 1 HP, and this is going to be a boosted wild charge. Hello, Drifblim. Goodbye, Drifblim. In comes Virizion. Virizion does not get to the move, and we're able to take the win. Dream lead in the next match, Virizion versus Licky. Again, the game just stuttering like crazy today. Oh my goodness. Genuinely, if you've already made your goals for the season, I would advise just take the weekend off from battling. Like, my goodness, this is just the game state is just absolutely brutal. I don't really have a lot of words other than it's just very disappointing to see. They aqua-tailed me, which was a little odd, because even if you aren't running Sludge Bomb, you still want to go for Crunch. And it looks like they are Aqua Tail Crunch. That Crunch does a ton of damage. In comes the Licky, and I'm just going to look for whatever damage I can get by firing off the Trailblaze. Trailblaze is going to be no-shielded by my opponent. I didn't farm up to a Focus Blast, so they have no reason to respect it. And now I get to connect with a boosted Brutal Swing. The Brutal Swing is going to land. Honestly, I've been able to put in some pretty nice work against the Licky. Licky's forced to throw energy. They can't get the rollout farm down. I can bring back in the Virizion, and I just have to hope that Toxtricity will be able to do well in the endgame. They're firing off energy. It is going to be the Body Slam. They're firing off another one. They are dry, and now it's all up to Toxtricity to try and sweep the endgame here. I'm looking to switch. Opponent switches as well. It's Shadow Annihilate, and this is really bad. Oh my goodness, these resistant counters are absolutely tearing through my HP bar. I need a bait if I want to win this game. So I'm going to overfarm massively, going for the power-up punch bait here, threatening a potential wild charge. Power-up punch gets no shielded. They call the bait, and now I only have one win con remaining, and that's to full send the wild charge. No combination of baits wins me this game. Only a no-shield will, but they will respect it. And getting the shield calls right, there's just nothing I can do, so I will resign the match. We pick up a pretty tough lead in the next match, Virizion into Annihilate. Honestly, this team doesn't have a great answer to Annihilate. I've previously run in the past Virizion Double Electric, and considering that it's an electric-type Pokemon, I figured that was the easiest archetype to work with. Here, my opponent is going to bring in Licky. I'm going to farm up, and again, I'm bluffing a Focus Blast that I do not have. So I go for the Trailblaze. Opponent respects it, and now I'm just going to undertap. I want whatever damage I can get onto the Licky. So even though I do give them a free rollout, I'm actually okay with that because their energy is not going to go very far into the Virizion, and in exchange, I get some pretty nice damage. Here, they go for a Shadow Ball, so they're not running Earthquake. They're forced to throw again, and this mid-game has honestly turned out pretty well for me. But that's not turning out well for me at all, as they're going to aggressively pivot out, send in Annihilate, Ice Punch connects, and then being an Ice Punch Annihilate is really not good. I'm going to look to land a Leaf Blade and then attempt a Poison Jab farm down with Toxtricity. Toxtricity now going to have to shield up everything because, again, it is very, very frail. They're going to go for the Rage Fist. I'm going to get a very nice farm down, and now in the back, oh my goodness, it's Magazone. This might actually be doable. My Poison Jabs, of course, are going to be doing less than nothing, but I have Power Up Punch, and this will continually hit for more and more and more damage. It's now single boosted. The next one is going to be double boosted. Opponent firing off energy. Mirror Shot won't KO. They need the Wild Charge. I'm going to shield up, respecting the Wild Charge. In comes Licky. Licky makes it to a move. Oh no. Do they have the Shadow Ball? It's just a Body Slam. I can bank it. I can bring in the Virizion, and this is all going to come down to, can Virizion get the farm down before they make their next Body Slam? It's going to be very close. Virizion does get the farm down, and that is game over, as I have the back-to-back Sacred Swords, and I have a Power-Up Punch loaded. My opponent just does not have enough shields for the number of charge moves that I have, so we're going to be able to take this win, even though Annihilate is absolutely awful for us, as Sacred Sword will secure the game. Picking up a difficult lead in the next match, Virizion versus Galarian Moltres. Now Moltres, I mean, it has no fast move pressure here, so they're entirely reliant on landing a Brave Bird. My goal is to try and catch a Brave Bird onto one of my electrics. So I Sacred Sword, I wait the turn, send in the Ampharos, but my opponent shows great patience. They hold on to the energy. In comes Licky Licky, and again, I do not have the Focus Blast, but I'm definitely going to make them think it. I farm up to 5, Trailblaze, and I grab the shield from the opponent. If they have Earthquake, they're going to throw it here, and I'm just going to let this through. It is the Earthquake, and down goes Ampharos. I'm going to bring in Virizion. Virizion will need multiple moves if it wants to get rid of this Licky Licky. So I'm going to be firing off the Sacred Sword. That's going to connect. I make it to another Sacred Sword, and I win the CMP tie, denying Licky Licky's energy, as Sacred Sword will deliver a knockout. In the back, they have Annihilate, and this is really not good. This is the consequences of not building a team with an Annihilate answer. If you see an Annihilate, you're going to have a pretty bad day. Here, I just throw Unalignment because my opponent was going to do 4 in the move, so I wanted to ensure that I could land this damage. And now they are going to fire off their energy. I'm going to call the Rage Fist and then just send in Toxtricity. I do barely survive that. In comes Toxtricity. If I can get this farm down, honestly, I think there might be a chance. I'm going to call that. I'm going to go for the farm down here. Let's go Toxtricity, but they survive on 1 HP. I didn't think they would get there. And that is actually going to cost me this game, I believe. But wait, my switch clock might come up in time. This is going to be very, very close. They are going to be firing off their energy. I need the switch clock up right now. My switch clock just did not come up. It was like a quarter of a second from being available. I can't save Toxtricity. Get farmed down, and we will lose the game. Hopping into the next match, Virizion versus Pangoro. This is a great lead for the Virizion. Opponent is going to switch out into the Shadow Drapion. And considering they led something so weak to Fairy, this actually might be a Sludge Bomb Drapion. I'm still going to stay in and play it out like it isn't because most aren't, but I'm a little worried it might be the Sludge Bomb. And there it is, Sludge Bomb. That's so much damage. Virizion barely hanging on here, surviving on 1 HP to make the Sacred Sword, and that is going to put them into perfect snipe down range for the Ampharos. Opponent is going to bring in Pangoro. I'm going to start ramping up my damage with a Trailblaze. Trailblaze into the Pangoro does get shielded, and that works out pretty nicely for me. Here, if I shield a Night Slash, they can 1 and make it close combat. So I call it, and I call it right. It's the Night Slash. That's a huge call. And now I'm going to commit the shield. They should be 3 off their next move, which means I can do 1, wait the turn to make sure I don't see a switch out, and then fire the Trailblaze at the intended target. The Trailblaze is going to be shielded. They actually undertap. They don't want to take any more damage, so they're just going to fire off the Night Slash to secure the knockout. I'm going to bring in Toxtricity, look to catch the close combat here, but it's a simultaneous switch out. They now have a close combat, and I could be in trouble. What this game is going to come down to is, does a Wild Charge from this thing one-shot? The answer is no. And the second thing this game is going to now come down to is they have a move banked. I can farm down and have a move bank. Who wins the CMP tie? We're both very high attack Mons, and Toxtricity wins the CMP tie over Pangoro. Pangoro gets KO'd, and against all odds, we're able to escape with a win. Virizion into Clefable, bad lead. I'm going to save switch into the Ampharos. Opponent responds with Golurk. I try and throw on good timing there, but unfortunately the game stutters. It forces me to overfarm too much, and now I only get 1 Brutal Swing instead of being able to grab a second one and potentially grab a shield. So really not off to a great start. Again, the game state is just really, really bad on whatever update they did, the 0.339. So if you have an ability to not run the game on that, I would recommend it. But my goodness, it made battling today quite difficult, unfortunately. I'm going to overfarm as much as I can, fire off the Leaf Blade, and I have to hope that Toxtricity will be able to sweep in the end game here. I bring in Toxtricity, they're staying with the Clefable, and they're firing off energy. So I am going to let this through. It's going to be a Meteor Mash. In the back is Feraligatr. Now this is where Toxtricity's typing should, in theory, allow me to sweep an endgame. However, the issue I'm going to run into is how frail this Pokemon is. It is so glassy that even a resisted Meteor Mash and now neutral non-stab Shadow Claws are just absolutely shredding me. I basically have 1 win con in this game, and that's that this Wild Charge lands. It doesn't. I try for the combo, but I'm 1 off, and I'm going to get outpaced. So they're going to be able to fire off a Hydro Cannon. I do 1 in the move. They switch into Clefable. Regardless, this is the move that I want to throw on Clefable. But this, unfortunately, is not going to be enough to knock out. They're barely going to be able to hang on. This Leaf Blade will get them very low, but not low enough. they exit with energy, and unfortunately, Toxtricity, while it was able to sweep some endgames earlier, was not able to sweep here, as Feraligatr is just such a menace. Hopping into the final match, Virizion into another Clefable. Maybe an opportunity for redemption. Save switch into the Ampharos. Opponent is going to respond with Gastrodon. Gastrodon farming up. I try and throw on good timing, but unfortunately it ends up being on alignment, and that's going to give them a free Mud Slap. Luckily, I can still make another one as they don't throw their energy. This is actually pretty good now. And they no-shield the second one. They miscount. They thought I only had a Brutal Swing, but I had the Trailblaze. I flip switch, and now Toxtricity gets to absolutely cook against this Clefable. They go for the Moonblast. I'm shielding it up anyway. In comes the Drapion, and I'm going to look to unleash a Wild Charge. Wild Charge will get same type attack bonus here. This is the non-Shadow Drapion, and that still does massive damage. In comes Virizion. They have a ton of energy here. I believe they're on 11 Poison Stings, and they do have Sludge Bomb. They can get another if I throw one double kick in the move, so I'm just going to under tap here to guarantee this damage or a shield. I'm able to get the shield, and from here, this should just be a winning position for me because I can just save the shield for Toxtricity. So now, I can send in Toxtricity, I'm going to be shielding, and I'll be able to outpace the Clefable since they Moonblasted earlier to a Wild Charge, and Wild Charge is just going to KO. So they bring in Clefable. I get to fire off this Wild Charge. I did overfarm by a bit, but I don't think it's going to matter because I don't think I'm making a power-up punch versus the Drapion. I'm just farming him down, and we're able to take the game. And now some final thoughts on Toxtricity. Toxtricity is what I would call a sim hero. If you're able to successfully bait with a power punch and get a shield and then land a boosted Wild Charge, the Pokemon is honestly going to feel pretty decent to play. However, that is very much reliant on having that power-up punch shielded, and that's not going to be the reality in every game. So even though it does have high upside, it also has a pretty low downside as well. Whereas we saw in the game versus the Annihilate called my power punch bait, and I lost the game on the spot. There was just nothing that I can do. So overall, while I do think it can definitely be a fun Pokemon to use, it's not a Pokemon that I'd recommend for climbing. It can feel very inconsistent to use at times just due to the extreme difference in damage and the benefit of having a power-up punch shielded between the bait and the nuke. And also, being an electric poison type in a meta where ground is as strong as it is isn't doing it a lot of favors. I think it's definitely worth grabbing one because it could be interesting in potential future limited metas, but as far as the open leagues, I don't think we're going to be seeing a lot of this Pokemon, just due to the fact that even though it has a pretty solid moveset, it just feels a little unwieldy to use overall. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.